I'm so excited to be going live today. We're going to be, right now, I'm joining YouTube and I'm also joining TikTok so that we're live across all of them. But today we're talking about gaslighting. I had a fascinating conversation a few weeks ago with Dr. Robin Stern, the author of The Gaslight Effect, about gaslighting. And some of the things that she shared in this experience, oops, I realized I don't have a mic in front of me. Sorry about that, all of you. Um, it should be better quality now. But anyway, so she blew my mind with some of the things that she shared about gaslighting. I really was completely taken off guard. So I want to talk about that today. Talk about what gaslighting is, what we get it wrong about it. We also talk about what to do about it if it's happening to you. I realize I can't see out of my glasses. It's all smudged. Um, but there's a lot we don't understand about gaslighting, and there's a lot about things that we get wrong. Oh, thank you so much for that compliment. I'm still trying to be able to read, once I get my glasses on here. Yeah, in fact, I see my YouTube and Facebook's delayed, and I can see that how smudged they were, how very, very smudged they were. So, okay, so I'm back. And all right, so gaslighting. Gaslighting is a really sophisticated tool to shift the blame from the person, shift the focus off whatever it is the person doesn't want the focus on, and make the focus you. Lately people have started to think that gaslighting is lying. Like if you lie, you just tell an outright lie, you're gaslighting somebody. That's actually not true. Gaslighting is always lying, but not all lies are gaslighting. So what do I mean by that? For example, if I said the sky is blue, and I just said it to the air or to whoever, then that's not necessarily gaslighting. But if I said, "Don't you think the sky is blue?" and you said, "No, it's really actually a turquoise kind of greenish color today," and I said, "No, it's always blue. You got it wrong." See, now I'm starting to gaslight you because I'm asking you to change your perspective for mine. And so I'm saying that your reality, your feelings, your perspective, your opinion is wrong, and then I'm asking you to substitute my perspective for your perspective. But it always involves lying. It's just not all lies are gaslighting. Sometimes, like you could ask, I think of, for example, me putting a 4-year old on a spot and saying, "Hey, did you eat the last cookie?" No, no, I didn't eat the last cookie. Now, that's not gaslighting, but although I can feel gaslighted, but actually, that person isn't trying to convince me of their reality. They're just denying that my reality is correct. So it's different. There's a nuance different. But so I don't know how many have you guys heard of Dr. Robin Stern? She actually has a podcast called The Gaslight Effect. She has a book out that's been out for a while now. It's a very powerful book, and I actually was thrilled to talk to her because she says something in there that I really strongly disagreed, and her and I had a chance to talk about it, which was so illuminating. It actually she converted me to her perspective. So I want to share that with you. She said gaslighting only works when you idealize the person that's gaslighting you. In other words, you in some ways are seeking out their opinion, or oh, thank you so much for that gift, Robin, that you've put them on some kind of a pedestal, or you want their approval in some way. That's the only way for gaslighting to be effective. Now, my first thought was, well, doctors gaslight patients. I know as a parent, have gaslit my kids. Um, does there always have to be idealization? Do I idealize my doctor? Not necessarily. I do give them credibility and see them as an authority. Does my kids idealize me? No, sometimes my kids can't stand me. So my kids don't always idealize me. The book is called The Gaslight Effect. The Gaslight Effect. So I got to ask her about that. Is that always necessary? And what she said was fascinating. So I want to break it down with you, and then we can talk about it a little more. Oh, Leslie, so good to see you. By the way, Leslie is one of the people I got to meet on the Rising Strong retreat in Mexico. We just got back on, I got back this week. Leslie's been back a week, but because I stayed extra week. So that was an amazing time, guys. If you would really love to have an intense experience of change, of getting to know other survivors, of really having a chance for you to deal with yourself, and look at your issues in a way that being a victim has affected you and sort of release that, I strongly, strongly urge you to consider coming to either. We have 3 coming up. We have for women, it's called Strong and Unstoppable. For men, it's called Unleash Your Potential. Those are both fall and in Orlando. And then there's also The next one for Mexico is going to be in February of next year, and that's back at Riviera Maya. And Erin's here, so two of my people who went. It was, I'll tell you, that was my first retreat that I personally was in charge of from start to finish with a team. I was Roe of Roller Coaster in Love and Lisa Sonni Stronger Than Before. So the team of us set that off. But I have been a part of women conferences in the past, but this blew my mind. This exceeded my expectations. And the women were so lovely. So it was really, really fantastic. I just deeply appreciated it. You guys were amazing, really, really amazing. So back to gaslighting. Does gaslighting always involve idealization of the gaslighter? In other words, does gaslightee need something from the gaslighter in order for it to be effective? Actually, that's true. Maybe it is that you want them to think highly of you. Maybe it is you just want to stay in connection with them. Maybe you value the relationship. It doesn't have to be something that's like highly, it doesn't have to be like you put them on a pedestal. It could be something that you somehow want something from them or value something from them more than they value you. And that makes you then vulnerable to being gaslit. It's so think about it that way. Think about the fact that you're looking for something from someone enough so that you're willing to betray yourself in order to maintain the relationship. Now, here's the other thing that she shocked me. Dr. Robin Stern, who's the author of The Gaslight Effect, shocked me. She said that the gaslighter is also invested in the connection enough so that they make a bid out for you to accept their reality. So in other words, they want the relationship to maintain, to stay in connection, in alignment with them, but they're asking you to relinquish, to give up your reality in order to maintain that relationship. So let me give you an example of what I mean, because it's like, what? So let's take an example out of my own marriage, which I talk a lot about, or which I wrote a book about called Love You More. So Love You More is a book about my marriage, what happened in this relationship. And in this story, he gaslights me a lot. He's a master gaslighter. And one of the things he would do is he would, I'd catch him on something or something didn't make sense. And I would say it, that it didn't make sense. And then he would switch it on me. He would sometimes he would accuse me of being too sensitive or too much or not letting things go. But sometimes he'd even question if I saw it correctly. He'd say, I don't know, you're better at that than I am. And so he'd make me question my own, did I see that? Did I get it right? Maybe I read it wrong. Maybe I looked at that email wrong. So they would end up literally changing the subject by making you the expert or swinging it back into your camp. So in that moment, when he's doing that, when he did that to me, and it can be both men and women, I'm only being gender specific because I'm talking about my partner who I had married a man. So that's why I'm talking about a man. But in that case, I have to, in that moment, care enough about the relationship and care enough about staying connected to him that I'm willing to say, maybe it was me. Maybe I did get it wrong. Now, did I idealize him? Well, in the beginning, I probably did because I wanted him to like me. I wanted him to fall in love with me. But later on in the relationship, when it started to get tired and old and there was so much abuse in it, I wasn't idealizing him so much as I just wanted us to get along, or I wanted us to get on better footing, or maybe I was hoping that the relationship was savable. So I started to get invested in other things. But in that moment, I was valuing more the connection than I was valuing me. And I think that's really powerful to remember is that because here's what happens. If you think about it, the next time you're faced with gaslighting, you have a choice. The choice is, am I going to substitute my reality or my feelings or my perspective in order to stay connected, in order to not make the fight go away or make the issue go away or make the partner be okay with me? Am I going to relinquish myself? Or am I going to stick to what I know is true and know that that's going to cause a disconnection? That may cause an argument. Maybe that's going to cause you guys having a fight tonight. Maybe this person's going to stonewall and storm off and leave you alone. But you're faced in that moment with a decision. Am I going to relinquish what I know to be right and true and real about me in order for me to stay connected to the person? Now, interestingly enough, they're also asking you to do the same. Now, let's pretend for a minute you're the gaslighter. You've done something you shouldn't have done. You've been caught. Your partner is now confronting you. So why gaslight your partner? Really, why? I mean, I never really thought about that before. Why would anybody gaslight somebody? Well, they're essentially saying, I'm not ready for the relationship to be over, but I need you to cooperate with my truth and my reality. Because I know that if you faced what it is that I actually really did, then we're going to have a disruption. We're going to have a confrontation and things are not going to go well. Like, say, for example, in my case, I was married to a serial cheater. So if I catch him talking to somebody and I could tell it was like spicy time, and he's now faced with a decision of, he owns it? Do he says, yeah, I did do that. What are you going to do about that? And know that the whole thing may blow up and will be over? Or does he want things to go on longer? Maybe for whatever reason, he's not ready. Maybe he doesn't have his ducks lined up in a row for him to be able to be out that day. But he then makes a bid in order for us to stay together so that we then can continue because that keeps the relationship under his control. Yes, I agree. It's also to avoid accountability, but think about that. Why avoid accountability? Why care? Really, seriously, somebody just said they do it because they don't want to be accountable. But why do it in that relationship? Yes, you just said it, because it could end the game. What is the game? The game is the relationship with you. They're not ready for that relationship to be, because if they were really ready for the relationship to be over, they would say it. They would call it out. Yep, you got me. I did that. I shouldn't have done it. You now know, okay, what are you going to do about it? But they don't want the game over. They don't want that disconnection to happen for whatever reason. It could be because they're not done getting the assets out of you, or to get a supply out of you, or whatever the reason is, but they're still looking for the relationship to continue under their control. I know that's a critical piece, under their control. I know a lot of us think it's just because they don't want to take responsibility and because they're not accountable. That's absolutely correct. I agree, but it's not the only reasons, and not just because they can't be honest either. It's because if here, think, push harder against that. What you just said, they can't be honest. Why can't they be honest? Because nobody would want to be in a relationship with somebody who's totally dishonest. Would you? I wouldn't. I wouldn't want, if I knew somebody was an absolute liar about every single thing they said, I wouldn't have a relationship with them. I would like, you know what? Please go over there in that corner and leave me alone because I really don't want to have a contact with you anymore. So why do they lie? They lie because they want to stay in connection with you. They don't want to be pushed out and have no relationship with you. My hair is herring. This is a wig and I just washed it, and it is have a little bit of a life on its own today. So yes, it is herring today, and I don't know why I have this bump here, and I don't like it. Fortunately, it's not showing up everywhere. It just shows up really bad on TikTok, but it doesn't show up anywhere else. But yes, so it is true that they don't want to face accountability, they don't want responsibility, and they don't like honesty. They don't like you to know the truth. But the reason all of this is happening is because they don't want to be thrown out and have no relationship with anyone anywhere. And so they tell this lie, these sets of lies, or these gaslighting in order to maintain contact with you. That's the ultimate reason, is they want contact with others, but under their stipulations, under their guidance, their rule, their control. So that's the part that Dr. Stern talked about in the gaslight effect that really, really surprised me. I was really surprised by that. And we aren't going to have people who are just toxic on here today, surely. I'm just not having it today. I don't know why people need to do that. That is so funny. It's just bizarre. They love people, love to be they just love to be mean. They can't resist it. So anyway, we got rid of them. Yeah, so let's talk about gaslighting and why you get stuck around it. I can talk about why I got stuck around it, why it really trapped me and caused a lot of problems for me, but I'd love to hear why it caused you a lot of problems. I have to admit, in the beginning, I didn't know I was being gaslit. Did you recognize that you were being gaslit? I know I didn't know because it was subtle. It was things that were like things I wasn't really for sure about. Like he might say something. I'm trying to think of an early example. Like he'd tell me that he was visiting his son, and I would think he was. I had no reason not to think that he was. I didn't realize that he had actually was seeing somebody else. So to me, it was like, you know, uh, yeah, okay, so you saw your son, whatever. But yeah, I really didn't realize it. And then it became more of about my behavior. It was a way for him to sort of adjust my behavior so that I would be more malleable, more compliant. And then so at the time, it happens so often. I think that's the sad point, is so many people gaslight other people in this world, that I just kind of thought that that was normal. That to have somebody sort of ask me, one of the things he did, he said, you're not going to be one of those strong women that never lets people help you. I'm thinking, well, I've had to do a lot of things on my own, and I've been kind of super independent since 18. I didn't know that was a problem. My late husband liked my independence a lot. He kind of counted on it. So, is that a problem? It's been a boon to most people, not a bad thing. So, I thought, well, okay, so he just doesn't like a woman who takes too much control. Hey, I've pushed my whole life for 40. I met him when I was 52 years. I don't mind someone taking a little bit of more control over. I'm tired. I don't want to be the one that like organizes every vacation and plans every day and takes care of all the girls. I don't want that. So it'd be kind of nice to share that with somebody else. So I didn't really see it as gaslighting. I just saw it as somebody kind of coming in and helping out. But now that I look back, I realize, yeah, that was gaslighting. He was setting a stage saying, I don't want you to be this kind of a person in the relationships. He was really, in a way, controlling me and controlling the way that I showed up. But then as we got into the relationship, it got more devious, and it was more about um, he was hiding his behavior. He was up to no good, and he didn't want me to know that. So he was actually deceiving me so that he could get away with stuff that he wasn't. Like one of the things that he did, I now know he was actually embezzling. Um, he was so what he would do is he talked me into taking money out of my account in a set amount of cash, keep it in an envelope which he kept, and then he would pay for the bills. And he explained it, well, we were in a culture where men tended to do that, so wouldn't it be the right thing that he should do that? And I had already worked at a group home years ago with youth that ran the same kind of cash system, that the group leaders then used cash and they put the receipts into the envelope every month, and we showed how the money was spent, and that was fine. So I thought, sure, why not? What I never realized is that he never put the receipts in. And I now know, and I don't know why I'm smiling because it's not funny, he was actually spending it on things he shouldn't have been spending on, things that I would have been highly offensive to me, things that were hurtful to me. But at the time, I had no idea that he was quietly, and it was not a joint account. It was actually my account. He was taking money out of my account from my life, from my history, from my children, and he was spending it on things that if he had ever asked, I would have said absolutely not. You're not to spend money on, paying for things that are illicit or illegal or are harmful or immoral to our relationship and violate the vows that we've made to each other. So no, it wasn't okay to me, but whenever I caught him on something like that, then he would just claim that I misunderstood or that he'd lost the money or something, to sort of brush it away and make it feel like it wasn't an issue. So that's what I saw. I saw in my relationship, it was an incremental process from a control of me to maybe just sort of like making it hard for me to know this person very well, to eventually it was very, very significant, very severe forms of deception. That, and it got, the worst was, and I didn't buy it. See, here's the other thing. You're not actually being gaslit if you don't accept the gaslighting. I don't know if you knew that. There's two things that have to happen. One is you have to disavow yourself. So when somebody proposes something that's not true, and you know it's not true, you have to then say to yourself, I don't value myself or my reality or my feelings enough that I'm going to defend them. That's a disavowal. Then if you take a step further and give it up, you've done a betrayal. You've actually betrayed yourself. So, but if you don't, then you've not actually betrayed. They've attempted to do it, but they actually haven't successfully done it. So at times I would just, outright say, well, I know that's not true. And I would just stand my ground. So let's talk about what to do, how to get out of gaslighting effectively, because it's tough. Because they'll push back and then they'll up the ante. You all know how that goes. You deny it, or you say that's not true, and then they'll say something worse about you. They'll kind of like double down on the issue, or then they'll attack you further, which is, by the way, Darvo is always a form of gaslighting. So Darvo is when they deny or deflect, then they attack you for bringing the issue up, and then they claim that you're hurting them by bringing this issue up. So it's a great shift. So you may say, hey, nobody took the garbage out this week. And they'll say, no, that wasn't my job. I can't believe you bring this up when you know the kind of week that I've had. Why do you always do this? You to pick the worst week for me and then bring this up and then attack me and make me feel like crap. See, that's Darvo. They denied it. They flipped it around, attacked you for what this is, and then they made themselves as the victim for doing it. But so here's what to do if somebody is gaslighting you. First of all, recognize that it's gaslighting. And how can you do that? Because sometimes, as I said, you don't always know what's happening. But you know if your gut is feeling like something is feeling right or not, or off. So if your gut feels like it's not really adding up and I feel a little awkward here, that may be a sign something's wrong. So pay attention to that. That uneasy, kind of crawly, creepy feeling where the hairs go up on the back of your neck, or maybe you just feel like something just doesn't like doesn't you just don't feel good. It just feels funny in your skin. That's a warning there's something off. Pay attention to that. That's your gut instinct. I'll never forget. Here's one of the things that happened, and I often would freeze. So my go-to trigger whenever I'm like feeling really, really upset is I just shut down. I'll go mute. I won't talk. I'll go very still, very quiet. I won't attack you. I won't run away. I just freeze. I hate that. Or I'll fawn. Fawn's my go-to if I'm not too scared. But if I'm really upset and scared, I just totally shut down. So one night I fell asleep on the bed beside him and I woke up and I saw he was texting somebody and he was acting weird. He would text and he would put it under his thigh and then he'd pull it back out above and he'd text something and he'd put it under his thigh. That was really strange. Like he often flipped the phone over, which I always knew he was trying to hide something, but this was more than flipping the phone over. He was going to a lot of effort. At one point, he kind of scooted it out on the bed beside his leg. And I found that if I kind of sat really carefully and moved my eyes, I could see a part of the screen and I could see that he was texting someone. And you know how at the text screen up at the top they have an image, or at least some text message programs do? Well, the image is of a woman, a dark-haired woman. And I could tell it was not an older woman like his mother or his sisters, it was a younger woman. Okay, so I knew he's texting somebody he wasn't supposed to, by the way he's behaving. So I said, "Who are you texting?" And he said, "No one." Okay, there's gaslight number one. And I said, "Yeah, you were, because I've been watching. You've been texting someone for a while now. Who are you texting?" "Oh, I'm texting my mother." He said, "I'm texting my sister." And I said, "I can see the image of this person and it isn't your sister. And if it is your sister, then you'll have no problem giving me the phone." He leaps off the bed, charges into the bathroom, and then he comes back. And I said, "So I'd like to see the phone." And he says, "I've deleted the messages." I said, "Oh, okay, so we've decided if you do that, then that means you've done something you really shouldn't have done. And I'm going to have to think about what I'm going to do here because we've decided you're not allowed to do serial cheating anymore, that's a boundary we've set in this relationship that you've agreed to. So I'm going to have to think through what I'm going to do because you're not coming forth with this anymore." So in other words, what I did was I held my line. I didn't relinquish what I saw. I didn't cave to his anger or his acting out. I just kept persistently pursuing the issue in a quiet, matter-of-fact way. And I'll tell you, this is a great way of defeating and kind of like overwhelming them. They don't know what to do when you do that. You can even act like a broken record, literally just say the same thing. "That's not what happened. This is what happened." And then they'll tell you another gaslight. "That's not what happened. This is what happened." And you may feel kind of like stupid saying this, kind of cheesy, but believe me, it's effective. I've seen it be very, very effective. It breaks down their defenses. They don't really literally know what to do with that. So he comes the next morning, he wakes up and he looks at me and he says, "So if I tell you who I'm texting, will you promise not to be upset with me?" I know, I'm thinking, am I in grade school? This feels like I'm in elementary school, seriously. And I looked at him and I thought, I'm never upset. I'm always the most calm, rational person ever. I don't scream, I don't yell, I don't throw things, I don't know what he's talking about. So I look at him and said, "Sure." And he says, "You're right, I was texting so and so. I was texting a woman." "Ah, okay." And I said, "Well, we have a lot to talk about then, don't we?" And then that's where we went from there. But notice how I just kind of stuck my ground. I didn't act like it was over. I didn't throw myself over. I just keep holding the ground and then waiting what's going to happen and see where it goes. Now, I want to warn you guys, you need to know who you're in a relationship with. This method I just shared with you won't work with everybody. There is a group of people who will become hostile and aggressive, that the confrontation to them feels like a challenge, and they'll see it as if you're attacking them even when you're not. That's not an attack, but they'll treat it like an attack. So be very, very careful with that group of people. You need to know, and in that case, it may be best just to break it off, know in your head that something really wrong is going on here, and then do something else. Then make a decision on what your boundaries are going to be about this situation. Yeah, somebody just said, flatbed queen, that's my hubby. You need to know that. And somebody else said that hers attacked her in a vicious way. So it's very, very important that you know the situation and that you don't inflate it so that you end up being wounded or like literally physically injured over this. I happened to know that mine wasn't going to attack me. I had been with him for 2 years. I know he was very violent. He had the potential to be violent, but I had recognized that he probably wasn't going to be violent to me as long as I didn't physically attack him. Then it wouldn't come back to me. But you need to know that. So please be really, really careful when you use this. Now, most of us, it will work great. But for that select group where you have somebody who any kind of they're the more paranoid type, honestly. They're either the more paranoid or they're the more sociopathic type that views your stance, your firm, rigid stance as a challenge. They kind of see it like you're posturing, and then they get really antagonistic, very aggressive. So if I'm describing your partner, and it can be male or female, this is certainly not gender specific because I've seen both get very, very aggressive. Be careful. You need to do something you'll have to take a different tactic. And the tactic may be you'll just mentally decide, you know what, I'm done. I'm not putting up with this and I'm going to get out. So, so be mindful of that. So I know I've been talking now for almost 30 minutes, and I always at this point start to turn it over to you guys to talk about what it is that you want to talk about. I know over on YouTube they're talking about Harriet Lerner's book called Dance of Anger, which I love. I love Harriet Lerner's material, highly recommend it. Also be sure to check out Gaslighting by Stephanie Sarkis. That's another really good book. Stephanie Sarkis, Sarkis. It's called Gaslighting. And then another really great book is Dr. Stern's book called The Gaslight Effect is super good as well. I really think that's an excellent book. Surveillance, that's a great idea, ready to travel. I like that idea. I do think these days, if I was back in that situation, I have a feeling I would put surveillance up in my house and just start running a record of things so that I had a track record of what went on. I do think sometimes for us that's really useful. But it gets me into another issue. I'm glad you brought it up. And that is, and I do see you, user, how do you stop feeling sorry for them when they have a disorder, but they are abusive? I think that's a really important part. I do want to talk about why we stay when we stay. I think it's important for us to recognize that there are lots of reasons why we stay. We want to belong. It's a way of life. We've invested so much into these relationships. It's hard to leave. The practical piece of starting over is tiring. It's exhausting. It takes enormous amount of effort. They often make it super hard to leave, so that makes it very, very hard to get out because they make it dangerous to leave. I do agree, Kate. There is a sunk cost fallacy, not for all of us. You feel like that's the case of where you feel like I've put this much time and effort in. Why not just stick it out? Especially as we get older, we feel like, I'm in my 60s now. It would be easy if I was in a relationship to feel like, really, I don't see myself getting into another relationship, so why not just put up with it? So that can be an easy reason why we stay. But I don't want to overemphasize. I don't want to underemphasize. That's really what I meant to say. I really don't want to overemphasize. No, I can't say it. Underemphasize how often it is dangerous. Leaving is tough. I know for me, when I went in to leave, he had already discarded me. So now I was flying in to settle things up financially with him in another country. And I was also going to attempt to get my belongings to get out. And he happened to be gone. I flew in when the house was empty because I knew he's out of town. He knew I was coming in. I didn't surprise him. He knew I was coming in. I knew the house was empty. I knew it wouldn't be easy for him to get back. So I really believed he'd be gone. But what I did do is I made myself another arrangement, another lodging arrangement. So if things went south, I had another place to stay. I didn't count on him being in a good space when he flew in that evening. So I had the day to myself. So I packed up by myself. kind of addressed whatever I wanted in the house alone. And then later that evening, picked him up from the airport. And we spent the last day together before we went and kind of legally dealt with stuff, which I talk about in the book, Love You More. I kind of talk about how we had a company together and we had to legally separate what we had. It was actually all my assets, but he was asking for a big ask. He wanted a big piece of it, so we had to go to the attorney and deal with each other about what we were going to do about that. So, but I highly recommend that you have a plan and really think through what you're going to do to sort of keep yourself safe, and to realize that that's a tough time and that leaving's not always possible. So here's another question, and that is, I want to jump back to what the user asked. What if we feel sorry for them? Now, here's the part that I want to push back on you, a user, whatever your number is. I think this is a really long number. Why do you feel sorry for them? Because it's a disorder. Why are you not feeling sorry for yourself for being abused? You now have a disorder because you're being abused. You now have probably form of PTSD. Your cognitive dissonance is now injuring your brain. Oh, it's Aaron. Hi, Aaron. You're actually having problems with feeling confused and having, like, thinking through things and being as organized as you were before. You may be having trouble sleeping and even like memorizing things, remembering things, and being organized like you were before. So you now have a disorder too because of the abuse. So why does their being dysfunctional or having this neuroatypical way of functioning more important than yours? Why does that matter more? I'm saying that because I felt the same. I have to admit that, and that's one reason why I got into being a psychologist, is because I really cared about other people and I wanted people to be loved, feel safe, feel accepted, have, all of that. I really wanted that for people. But the problem was I forgot myself in that process. I didn't realize that I counted too. And that when I put another person's needs above my own and says it's okay to treat me like a whipping boy, or treat me like, sorry, that's probably very, very inappropriate to say, when they treat me like I don't count, like I'm a nothing, like I'm a nobody, that's hurtful to me. That's very hurtful to me. It says that I don't matter and that I do matter. Every person matters. And that's the point of it. Every person matters. So I really challenge you to think it through, that a healthy relationship is one in which both people matters equally. You matter, they matter. You matter, they matter. They take care of you, you take care of them, and there's this reciprocity. And there's this respect, this mutual respect. It's not a one-up relationship. That's what often I have found, is that we often get into these relationships somehow feeling like we're more than, and we don't really need to be more than. We need to be equal to is a better way to do it. So yeah, I think the thing is, though, and I want to, and to go back to that comment, is that they make us feel sorry for them. They do play. I mean, I remember near the end of my relationship when I caught him again doing more serial cheating, and he said, Kerry, you're just going to have to accept I'm a sex addict. It's up to you to decide if you can live with that. Now listen to what he's actually saying to me. Let's break it down. Because when you get in the point of that position, you're thinking, my first jump was, oh, I want the relationship to continue. I don't want to lose this relationship. This means so much. So he's like putting an ultimatum out there, and I could feel it. But let's think about what he was actually saying. He's saying, I don't intend ever to give you loyalty, monogamy, or honesty. I don't intend to stick by your side. I don't intend to respect you, respect our relationship. I don't intend to have a reciprocal intimacy with you. What I want you is you to give this relationship up to me on my conditions, only my conditions. And that's the way in which this is going to go forward, is that you lose and I get to continue to remain the same as I am, and I'm going to continue to hurt you. What an ask. Wow. But isn't it bizarre how my initial go-to was like, oh, poor you can't help yourself? What? Really? He can't help himself? Of course he can help himself. Everybody can help themselves. I mean, anybody who comes on here and wants to tell me I'm overweight, they won't say to me, you help yourself the next time you ate something. They want to put that accountability on me. Then why can't they be accountable for what he does sexually? Yeah, he can help himself. I can help myself. We can all help ourselves. So really, but it's interesting how they appeal to our compassion. And here's the thing, it's interesting. They're not compassionate. What do you think would happen if I've ever, in any way, ever did one of the slightest things in his direction that was hurtful to him? I mean, I couldn't even call a coworker about a job and he was upset with me because somehow that was inappropriate. Like I'm talking about business. This is a male coworker about business. And yet on the other hand, he's allowed to like, he actually sexted a string. There's a woman who apparently called the wrong number and he texted her back and said he liked her voice and started to like hit on her. I mean, it was like ridiculous stuff this guy was doing. Yeah, so it was that kind of like, you know, out of balance. It's really, yeah, and I don't mean to be harping on you that you said that you, I hear you. Like, please back off me, back off me. No, I know that I'm not speaking to you specifically. I'm just speaking to you all generally because it's a common problem. It's a problem I had. I mean, I'm actually talking to myself, to be honest with you. It's a big problem I had. In fact, let me give you a real recent example. I had somebody get a hold of me by email this last week that wanted to, that had found an old dating profile of mine from about 9 years ago. It was old. This person tracked me down, kind of creepy. Tracked me down, found out where I was at, found out because I'm not hard. It's not hard. You put in my name because of all the stuff I've done and wrote I pop up pretty quickly, especially if you know that I'm a psychologist and where I was originally, like I was working, and you can find it. So he tracked me down into Austin and he got a hold of me and said, "Hey, I really liked your profile. I just really felt led to get a hold of you. I know that we live in different states. I'm not for sure I'm really interested in moving, but I'd like to get to know you better." Okay. So I talked to him a little bit and he started like to use words that were affectionate. I could tell he kind of knew more about, obviously knew more about me than I knew about him because he tracked me down, he searched me and he found my social media profiles. It made me feel a little awkward, but also flattered at the same time. And then all of a sudden, on the several days in, I wake up to a text message saying um, that he wanted me to know that we could never date because he was in a different state, and that he just came into my life to offer spiritual guidance. And I'm thinking, dude, I didn't track you down. You tracked me down. Dude, I never used terms of endearment. You did. And I don't recall ever asking you any for spiritual guidance. I mean, you're flipping the script on me and making that I did something to you and I never did anything to you. I've just been following your lead. So there's an example where, in the moment, my first thought was, I failed to stop and consider how out of whack that was, how out of strange that was. And I'm just kind of appreciating that somebody feels like I'm, interesting and they're wanting to have a relationship with me. What I missed though is the way he was a little domineering, how intense this was, how he's interpreting things that have nothing. I mean, he doesn't really know me well enough to interpret those things. And I'm ignoring all these red flags. And those are the things. So that's why I hit at that topic so hard, is because I still do it. And I don't like that I do it. But here's the thing that I'm happy about. I'm catching it faster. And the other thing that I did do, yes, I am in Austin. The other thing I did do is that I confronted him at the end and I wasn't scared about it. I said, wait, dude, that letter you sent to me, you sent to yourself. That wasn't about me. It was about you. You're projecting. I didn't do any of that. And then I stated the truth. And in the past, I would have been too ashamed of his behavior that I wouldn't have told him the truth. But this time I said, you used terms of endearment. I never said I would move. I never asked for spiritual guidance. You even asked if I would move, and I said that I wouldn't. And I just confronted him. Hey, Bronco Barbie, get a hold of me. I'd love to meet you. That'd be wonderful. So yeah, I held my ground. I didn't get ashamed, and this guy was an upstanding guy enough. Now I knew it could go really bad. I expected it to go bad. I was ready for that, for him to like, and then just charge out of there. But instead, he said, "No, you're right. I did do that. I'm sorry. It's all on me." And then he disappeared, and I never heard from him again. Which isn't that strange? So I'm saying all that to say that that's what happens. That's what it's like. It's really hard. Unfortunately, when you're a really easygoing person like me and like you, if you're here and you've been a victim, probably you are too, it's really hard to hold our ground, to realize that people are not all good and that we need to recognize when something feels off. It felt off to me, the way that he approached me and the way he was kind of a little controlling. I should have listened to that faster and thought, I'm not really interested. I'm just not that interested. But because there's a part of me like, yeah, I'd like to be in a relationship. I don't know if it's going to happen. I'm almost 62 these days. So, it's kind of getting rare and far in between. But, but I have to like be okay with that. I really have to be okay with that. So, yeah, I trust the gut. I agree. I don't know why some of you guys' comments are hidden. It's interesting. They still come up important. I still see them, but they're mute. They're like grayed out. Does anyone know why on TikTok some comments are grayed out? It's really weird. But yeah, I agree with you. We need to understand the vibe. We need to understand our gut. Now, I do know, here's what I know about myself. If I had gotten to meet him in real life and spent maybe a few dates with him, I would have like, nah, I'm not going anywhere with this. Just because I can tell this guy really likes to be in charge. In fact, he was married 40 years to another woman, and he described her as kind of like the pastor's wife. And I just don't, I'm not a pastor's wife type. I'm definitely not. So I've got a lot going on in my life, and I'm not going to be somebody's cheerleader to their parade. I'm just not going to be. So, oh, that's interesting. Okay, so there's keywords that's happening on these, and that's why it doesn't show up. Interesting, very interesting. So, where is the line between grace and holding the ground? Can you say more what you mean by that? I love the question, Merns Keeter, or that's a weird name, Merns Keeter. I'd love to know that. What do you mean by grace versus holding the ground? I don't need to sum up about them. You hurt them when you're on the chopping block. Scrap along, I'm reading what you have to say. They always tell on themselves without yeah, they do always tell on themselves without knowing it. They do. And Rebecca, you're not late. You're here. That means you're here. We're happy you're here today. And Kelly, I'm so thrilled that you're here on Facebook too. I'd love to know who else is on Facebook watching. I've really been making a concerted effort to go regularly on Facebook. Yeah, they do bank on us. They do bank on us, and they do really string us along for sure. Very, very much so. It's rough. Someone said mine emailed me today and said, "Hope you're well." Now I love Murray. Did you have you guys been going like um, avoiding each other? Like, was that out of the blue? You got that email? Oh, they love to do that. They love to pop up and let you know that they're around. Hey, mom, my mom's on. Hey, I'm so glad you're here, mom. How weird is that, right? My mom's on Facebook. Yeah, grace to ourselves instead of telling someone about themselves. Okay, so grace to oneself instead of telling someone about themselves. Stay out of it until engaged. So, okay, I'm still trying to follow exactly what you mean. So they popped up and emailed you after being no contact for a month. Oh, they love to do that for sure. They really do love to do that. Do you know why they do that? It's because you're not, someone says, so how do you stop the pop up? You're not going to stop the pop up. Yeah, I love mom support too. It's great to have a mom support. You're not going to stop the pop up. Expect that. I think if you said that to yourself, expect them not to stop popping up, then it really helps you not be surprised and also to be ready for the next one because it's going to happen the next time. The reason is because you're not really a person to them. Think of it like this. Is there something that you collect in your life? Maybe you're a person who happens to have every phone that you've ever owned and you just stash them in some spot. You just keep them stashed. And maybe even once in a while you'll go back and you'll look at them and think, oh, what photos do I have that I didn't move over or whatever. You just go back and kind of look at it. That's really what they're doing. For whatever reason, the supply in their life has gotten low and they feel like they need more. And so then they pull you out. They remember you, something causes you to cross their mind. And then they touch bases with you just to sort of like stir stuff up so they can feel like that like there's life, like there's, like you're just to feel alive and just to even kind of revisit old days. But it is never about you, and it's never about their feelings of warmth or care or investment about you. It's really more about what they want you to do for them. It's interesting. I know mine is tracking me because every time I'm about ready to go into Mexico for a trip, an in-law of his gets a hold of me. I swear, like the day of or the day before, they suddenly, when there's been no contact for weeks or even months, all is like, hey, how are you doing? And I'll be just about ready to go into Mexico, and I think, yep, he's tracking me. This guy knows what I'm up to, and he's sort of just like wanting to check it out, see what I'll say. Whenever that happens, I never mention the trip. I never even indicate that anything's happening that way. I like be very, very careful. What I would highly recommend that you do, and sorry, I keep my my computers go down and I lose a light. What I would urge you to do is don't react. When they pop up, don't react. Don't say, best thing is to say nothing at all. Just pretend that it didn't happen. And I do agree, block if you can. Now, sometimes they find other ways around, like they'll suddenly use a new email on you, or they'll develop some kind of like another anonymous account that suddenly they'll get a hold of you that way. And that just happened to me. In fact, that just happened to me. I have a guy that I have turned this guy down 3 times dating, 3 separate times. I went out with him one date and then never saw him again. And then a year later, he said, hey, can we go out again? And I thought, well, is one date really not fair? So I went out with another date and I thought, no, I remember why I don't want to see him again. I turned him down again. He popped up 2 years later and asks me out again. That time I go out 4 times. Why, I don't know. I go out 4 times. They're all bad. And then I block him. And that was a year ago. I block him. And just this weekend ago, he texted me through a new Facebook account and said, hey, why did you block me? I'm disappointed in you. I'm disappointed that you blocked me. I'm thinking, dude, take a cue. So I wrote him back and told him some like honest, not pleasant truths about what he did to me and said, listen, if you want to respect me, don't ever contact me again. Not ever. Now, will he? Probably. He's been like a penny that keeps turning up in my shoe. So yeah, I'll probably hear from him again. But here the point is, stay the line. Don't see it as romantic. It's not sweet. It's creepy. I agree with you, Kate. It's creepy. Um, yeah. So be really, really careful. And the other thing is you always have a choice. The best thing to do is just don't respond at all. Here's one of the things that Gavin DeBecker recommends in his book called The Gift of Fear. And I love it. If you got a person that just won't stop contacting you on the phone, they just won't stop, get a new phone with a new number and then start giving the new numbers out to people that you care about a lot. So the people who are important to you, you give that number to, but anybody that's not, then don't. And over time, eventually, the only person who will have that number is the person you want to get rid of. And they won't know you have a new number because it keeps answering. You just never pick it up or take the messages. So that's one way to kind of get rid of somebody without them ever knowing it. And I love that because I think that's a really great way to, without stirring stuff up and making it confrontational. That's a good way to doing it. Yeah, I agree with you, Scrap Along Mail. We're supply and they are deeply codependent. Yeah, we don't talk about that, do we? People who are narcissistic or have a lot of personality traits are deeply codependent people. They need people, they need even conflict with people in order for them to feel alive, feel like they have life, feel like things are going along. So they really, really need that. They seek that out. Absolutely. Oh, let me know, Scrabble and Mail, how it goes. If you do that, I'd love to hear what your experience is getting that second phone and passing out the new number to only people you want to have it. Because I think it's a really smooth way of dealing with this. It's kind of a pain because you're paying for 2 numbers, but I do think it's a smooth way of doing it. Yeah, that's a fascinating point you're bringing up, WD channel. You're saying stalkers are very dangerous. In the California, statistics show that women who get restraining orders are at the highest risk of being injured during the first 2 weeks. Okay, so again, Gavin DeBecker talks about this in his book, The Gift of Fear. He talks about why that happens. I highly recommend you guys read that book. What he says is there's an index he uses that talks about risk, threat risk, how dangerous somebody's becoming. When a person feels like they're being stripped of access, they're being diminished, and their dignity is gone, and I may miss a few other points, they start to feel like they have nothing to lose. And when they have nothing to lose, then they have nothing to lose when it comes to harming you. So this is a guideline to always think about with yourself. Think about, are you taking away this person's all reason to live? And if that is, then don't do that behavior. Find another way. Now, Gavin DeBecker is not saying continue to be affected by this person. Don't continue being a victim to this person. But he is suggesting there are other ways around it. Sometimes we get confrontational and we don't need to. Sometimes just pretending something's not happening is the best way to deal with it. For example, there's somebody that I have on Instagram that follows me closely. They are not well, is not a well person, and they fashion themselves in love with me. And you can tell if you ever read my comments, you'll see this person popping up and saying very inappropriate things about declarations of love. I know if I respond in any way, even hearting or upping that comment, I'm engaging, and engaging is going to feed that intensity. I don't want to feed that intensity. It's not good energy. It's dangerous energy. So what I do is I do nothing. I don't block this person because I'm not going to anger them, but I'm also not going to engage with them in any way. No engagement. I don't like the comment. I don't up the comment, and I certainly don't respond. I give no engagement. And then eventually, maybe over time, this person will lose interest in me, but at least I'm not intensifying their feelings. I don't want to intensify this person's feelings. So sometimes no engagement and actual, like as if it didn't happen, is the best action you can take. That's what I talk about with Gavin De Becker in his book The Gift of Fear talks about sometimes that's the best way to deal with these really toxic situations. Do I think that putting my story out there attracts these folks? No, I actually don't think that. I think that doesn't take any, it just takes to be a public figure to attract them. I don't think, for example, I'm not saying I'm Jodie Foster, and I'm not saying I'm other people, but I know this happens to a lot of people. Just being public attracts that kind of energy, whether you want it or not. And you know what? You could even be. How many of us know cases of where somebody's in high school and they get a stalker? What did they do? Nothing. They did nothing to get that attention. They just live, breathe. So sometimes it doesn't take anything. Sometimes people are delusional and they create a story of their own that they believe is real, and then they act as if they create a narrative around you that may not be true. I think that's what's happened in this case. So I just don't feed it. That's the way I'm coping with it. And no, for me, I'm not really looking for advice on this. I know you guys are suggesting some things I do. I really feel like this has been going on for a few years, and nothing has escalated. So I feel like I'm doing the right thing. Yeah. So Scrap Along Mail says I just don't answer, and not answering means that I'm in control. She thinks my current phone's off, and I have so much more peace living in the house. I agree. Sometimes just like pretending nothing's happening is really like, yeah, it's really a very peaceful way to do things. I used to run Lady Bird Lake, and my ex would sit in the benches while I'd run by. Yeah, sometimes they do that. I find that I just won't allow people to change my life. I don't want to give them that kind of control over my life like that. Yeah, exactly. You could just be going about your business, and then here comes somebody who makes up some weird story. You may have just looked in their direction thinking about something completely unrelated, like what you're going to have for dinner, and they're going to think you fell in love with them. You have no control over the kind of assumptions people make. So, Rebecca, you've been reading Out of the Fog, and then you already read Psychopath Free. Yeah, those are fantastic books for those. Yeah, and that book for Gavin De Becker's book is on a 6-month wait list. Hey, I have a question for all of you. How many of you have the Dr. Ramani's latest book called blocking on a title? It's Not Me? Or how many of you have Dr. Ramani's new book that just came out? Just came out. I have it. I'm sitting over here on my book table. I can't see it, which is why I can't tell you the title. But I would love to know what you guys think of it. The guy who does YouTube channel Societal Narcissism had a stalker who lived in a van, showed up near his house, and the police arrested the guy. It was some weirdo named Destroyed by Society. Wow, that's fascinating. That's kind of scary. Yeah, I have oh, It's Not You. Thank you. That's it. Thank you, you guys. It's Not You. Yeah, how many of you guys have the book It's Not You? Have you guys read it yet? It's big. It's thick. I'm impressed that it's thick. Oh, you do? Oh, I love that. A lot of you guys are like, yep, I've got it. I have it too. I'm excited. I can't wait to read it. I've been in her narcissistic abuse certification, and it's rich. It's really super rich. I'm really loving it a lot. So I'm excited to get into it. What's the best book? Okay, here's a question for you all. What's the best book you've ever read that really helped you around healing from your abuse? Yeah, Gray Rock is cooking. I see you asked it as a question. Do you think it would be harmful or neutral or a bad move? Okay, so user, you said Lundy Bancroft was it's I'm blocking on the name. Why did he do that? That was a very good book. Very good book. Comeback Queen or Codependency No More. Yeah, you like that? The passive, that's interesting. I have the passive aggressive narcissist. I haven't read that. God's Little Devotion book. That's cool. I really love too. I agree with you. Gray Rock is Cooking. Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay Gibson. And I do have What Happened to You by Dr. Perry and Oprah Winfrey. Did you guys read A Boy Raised as a Dog? Oh, it's powerful. That's a powerful book. It's written by Dr. Bruce Perry. It was really, really good. I'm excited that Dr. Ramani's book is a bestseller. She worked hard for that. She did a lot of work on that. No, I did not write It's Not You. I didn't write that. Yeah, why does he do that is a really, Bronco Barbie, if you haven't read it, you really should read it. It's a good book, a very, very good book. I enjoyed it a lot. I've got a lot of them sitting around me. We're working, right now, my book club is working through The Gift of Imperfection by Brene Brown. I have to say, it's not one that I would say necessarily is for targeting abuse survivors, but it is very appropriate. And I'm thrilled that we're reading it together as a group. It's called The Gift of Imperfection. So that's very, very good. Yeah, Bronco Barbie, I expect him to hoover you. You're a month out, but you're early. Expect that to happen. Expect some kind of way for him to move in and ask to be friends, or can you at least like connect once in a while, or that he misses you, or he saw something that, or maybe he's going to send you a photo and says he's been thinking about you, but wait for it. It's going to come. I'll lay money on it that it's going to come. I have yet to read the emotional one about, yeah. I have a feeling that's a good book. It's a very good book. So RW Channel says Dr. Orloff wrote a book called The Empath Survival Guide. That's interesting. I haven't read that either. The book of the name that I keep talking about, Blossom Havens, called The Gift of Fear. The Gift of Fear by Gavin, Gavin, de Becker, D-E, small d, D-E, and then the second word is Becker, B-E-C-K-E-R. Very, very good book. Very good book. He is an analyst. His story is powerful. I think he was 10 or 12, and his parents got into a lethal altercation. And it was so galvanizing that it directed the rest of his life. And then he got into understanding what signs of dangerousness do we miss that cause us not to protect ourselves. How can we get better at identifying danger, spotting it, so that we can get better at protecting ourselves? Interestingly enough, I just finished the series. It's on Prime Video, and it's been out for a little while, called The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart. Has any of you seen The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart series? It's on Prime TV, on Amazon Prime. Oh my goodness, guys. Wow. You're looking for a powerful series. It's a 7-hour long series. Oh man, really good. And what I like about it is that it doesn't deal with this topic and wrap it up all neat and pretty. It does a very good job of showing what narcissistic abuse is and how tough it is. And I'll have to tell you, I'm feeling teary even saying that. When she finds the book of lost flowers, oh man, wow. Because there's a lot of lost flowers. And that's people who don't make it out, or something bad happens because they don't. My sister is a lost flower. Yeah. So there are stories. We know people who don't make it out. It's called The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart. Sorry, now you got me crying. I got myself crying. So yeah, I highly recommend this story. And I even made me think about my retreats, how we're talking to all the people who have been lost, who are struggling to get out, very, very much so. And that we all want to save each other, very much so. And you learn that the person who's doing all the saving of other people is very much a victim. You get to hear the rest of her story, and it's a powerful story, not an easy story. So check it out if you're looking for a very good. And Sigourney Weaver is the main character, and Sigourney Weaver is a lovely, lovely person. I just love her to death, and she's such a brave soul. And I just love how vulnerable she is in the story. Very, very much so. Well, guys, I need to wrap it up because I'm going to hop over to my club and hang out with my club members for the next hour. If you guys are looking for support, if you'd like to have group coaching once an hour each week to hang out with me with a small group where we can see each other and talk to each other in addition to getting amazing community support, in addition to getting all the other things that you can get with that, please join Toxic Free Relationship Club. It is a fantastic group. I just love all the members, and we hang out every week and we read books together. So if you're looking for, you feel alone and you don't want to feel alone, you don't really want to pay for group coaching, it's a little too expensive. I think this is a fantastic way to get all of this without having that higher bill. So consider Toxic Free Relationship Club. And you guys are amazing. I love hanging out with you today. Next week we'll be back and we'll be talking about stonewalling. So next week's topic is stonewalling. So I will look forward to seeing all of you guys next week at the same time. Bye-bye, you guys.